Roger Ebert has passed away. This man has been a titan in his own industry of reviewing movies, and he's pushed his medium forward as an art form. He had been doing it for roughly 5 decades, 50 years. He has left an indelible mark on his medium, undoubtedly. But this man has also influenced dozens of other people to follow in his footsteps in reviewing things. He has actually left also another indelible mark on another medium, and that is games. Whether you probably will not agree with me, this is my tribute to him, but his indelible mark on video games is not as obvious, but is just as deep. His mark on video games that has been left is almost just as big, if not, it is not bigger, but it's almost as big. Because every reviewer, modern reviewer, always looks to Ebert's way of style of reviewing movies in a way to review video games. You ask any modern reviewer, Sessler, Angry Joe probably follows and emulates him. Also, if you look at the game trailers, IGN, Kotaku, not Kotaku, but you know what I'm trying to say. Many of these major publishing sites and many of these massive reviewing sites follow and emulate his style of reviews. For good and for ill, it's been done. And it will always be done. And it will be done for a while. And the reason for our emulation of such a respectable style in one medium is because we are trying to we want to be considered just as important as movies. And that his mark is in a sense everyone in another medium trying to copy his style of reviews. That in and of itself is why he himself has crossed two genres, not two genres, but two mediums of review, and that his influence is in a sense undeniable. That one is the most obvious and the other is subtle. And that in video games we have been struggling to be considered an art form, and we are already a work of art, an art form that many people really don't look at it because they are not. It is not exactly like the video games are not exactly like movies, and that many people feel there's still much growing up to do in our industry. In and of itself, many games are art forms. Many games that many people would dismiss are very much strong, iconic pieces in our industry that will never be forgotten. Deus Ex, the original BioShock, Flower, Journey even. I didn't like Journey, but I could see it as such. These are just a handful of games that have left an indelible mark on many people in gaming. Hell, many of BioWare's RPGs. They worked on Baldur's Gate, they worked on Mass Effect, they worked on Jade Empire. These games have left an indelible mark, meanings connected to many people emotionally, and really hit a chord with many people. We have been an art form for a very long time, and one that many people do not realize, or they look at it that it's not an art form, both inside and outside the community, because we are not as respected as any other medium. And we are an art form, and that we have looked to his style of reviewing, even though we've taken it from movies and tried to place it in video games. We've taken a look at his style and tried to copy it and emulate it in our own form. And Adam Sessler, agree with him or not, he in and of himself has always tried to be like an Ebert. If you listen to some of the old podcasts, I believe he had talked about how he was always looked up to Ebert. Many of these other reviewers that they've been there in the industry for almost since the beginning have always looked up to Ebert's style of reviewing. Many of the podcasts that many of these reviewers talk about, they've always looked up to Ebert. They always wanted to be all of them wanted to be considered the Ebert of their own area. And this is why Ebert, whether his influence is not direct, it's indirect, and this is what makes his passing for many reviewers and many of his words against games as art feel as impactful. Many of these reviewers heck, even Movie Bob, disagree with him, agree with him or not. Everyone tries and wants to be this the titan of the industry, and movies has lost their titan, and it will be a long time coming before there is another one. And that, I say, is a sad day, because we do need these titans of our media to push their media forward, or to influence and actually share our love and cherish of our media to other people. Games are no different. Ebert's influence and impact is just as big, and why many reviewers, I have no doubt, are going to talk about Ebert, or at least making significant passing references to him, because they themselves have been influenced by Ebert's style and way of reviewing his media and try to implement it in ours. And it's no different than what I'm doing now. This is my tribute to the man, that he has done so much, and what he has, and all it is that his breakdown of his media, his medium of movies, has pushed many of ours to try to push our media forward and looking at games in a different way. Some people do look at the little details, looking at why do they choose first person shooter or first person perspective, why do they choose this art style, why do they choose this time set, why do they choose this. And this is in itself what makes games, in a sense, more powerful than movies, is that we have to do more to engage people. That the dialogue in and of itself is the only lackluster element in video games, is more due to the fact that more is done through action than through sitting down and absorbing it. And this is why many reviewers, why his style of review that has been influencing many modern game reviewers and game reviewers since the beginning, is that we always focus on some cinematic storytelling and looking at storytelling in video games from a passive attitude, from a passive direction. That many people talk about, oh, it's so great, it's so beautiful, it's so cinematic. In a sense, taking from Ebert. Taken from Ebert's perspective and mindset. And that video games as an art form tell its story in so many different ways. BioShock's is no different. This BioShock is no different from telling its story and atmosphere in its own way. That it may not be spoken through, it's done through a lot of cinematics, but it's also done through passively, by simple conversations that you can theoretically ignore yourself. And this is what makes our medium so strong and powerful, and one that makes Ebert why he himself never considered it, because his conception of art is a passive engagement. And when we do our reviews, like Ebert, much of it is from a passive perspective. Many game reviewers who do a active engagement on reviewing games are the ones that are pushing their medium forward more than Adam Sessler ever could and ever will, or even anyone at Destructoid. They always review games in such a passive manner, and they look at games in a very passive manner. And that's why many games, when they get talked about, oh, it's so cinematic, it is always gravitating to Ebert's perspective of what art is. Many reviewers, why games, the biggest thing is with Ebert's reviews, his style is always cinematic in nature, always movie-like. The reason why many games get a very high nod and a thumbs up by many critics is that they're moving towards a more cinematic, movie-esque feel, more like Ebert's perspective and more like how Ebert perceives games as art. And his mark is why our reviews are the way they are, and the reason why many people are starting to have this pushback with our modern reviewers. Because our modern reviewers have been using Ebert's template for so long and so dogmatically that when games push so much away from it, or a specific amount away from the cinematic flair, many people revile against it because it is so ingrained from reviewers that cinematic is good, cinematic is great, and that many people have this hard distinction. Adam Sessler, many times, many of the games, when they're passively engaging, he has a problem with it, or he feels it's too childish. Many great artistic games, I feel, that are great, are more lighthearted, more of a whimsical atmosphere and setting and feel to it, but they can still get the same points across. And I know not many people are going to agree with my tribute. They're going to say it's a slander or what have you, or I knock him. This is not a knock against him. His mark has been left on the gaming industry just as much as the movie industry. The only difference, one has lost their biggest icon. We are just trying to find our icon. And we have yet to find our icon in this industry. And I do hope that there is another great man that can take up Ebert's stance in movies. And I do hope that we do find our big man for games soon. Thank you for listening. Please tell me what you think. And I'd like to say, everyone, thank you and good night.